$5.3 billion. That's how much money Nissan is projected to lose this year alone, a financial bloodbath unprecedented in the company's 91-year history. As we speak, Nissan is hemorrhaging $14.5 million every single day, while desperately shuttering factories across the globe. What mainstream media won't tell you is that this isn't just another rough patch for the Japanese automaker. The company that once challenged Toyota and Honda for global dominance is now fighting for its very survival, trapped in a death spiral of catastrophic management decisions, failed products, and a complete collapse of consumer trust. But the most shocking part, this implosion was entirely predictable and entirely preventable. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the real reasons behind Nissan's spectacular fall from grace. The statistics paint a picture so grim that industry insiders are now openly questioning whether Nissan can survive the decade. In early 2025, Nissan announced projected losses of $5.3 billion globally, with a staggering $3.5 billion from U.S. operations alone. This isn't just a bad quarter or even a bad year. It's an existential crisis. Nissan's market share in America has plummeted from 8.4% in 2017 to just 3.7% today, a collapse of more than 55% in less than a decade. Let that sink in. More than half of Nissan's customer base has simply vanished. Meanwhile, the company's stock has cratered by 74% since its 2017 peak, wiping out over $20 billion in shareholder value. The company's fleet of unsold vehicles has reached crisis levels. Drive past any Nissan dealership and you'll see the evidence yourself. Rows upon rows of unsold Altimas, Rogues, and Pathfinders gathering dust. Industry reports indicate that Nissan dealers are now sitting on an average of 187 days worth of inventory, nearly triple the industry average of 65 days. Many dealerships are quietly refusing additional shipments because they simply have nowhere to put the cars. Perhaps most damning of all, Nissan's customer loyalty rate has fallen to just 28%, the lowest of any major manufacturer. To put that in perspective, Toyota enjoys a 59% loyalty rate, while even struggling brands like Volkswagen maintain rates above 40%. What does this tell us? That even Nissan's existing customers are fleeing the brand in record numbers. The data becomes even more alarming when we examine Nissan's product lineup. The once popular Altima has seen sales decline by 68% since 2017. The Maxima, once Nissan's flagship sedan, was discontinued entirely in 2023, after sales fell below 10,000 units annually. Even the company's best-selling Rogue SUV has seen a 42% sales drop over the past 4 years. Consumer Reports reliability rankings tell an equally devastating story. Of Nissan's current lineup, not a single model scores above average in predicted reliability. 5 models, the Sentra, Kicks, Murano, Pathfinder, and Titan, received the dreaded below average or poor ratings. Meanwhile, J.D. Power's initial quality study ranked Nissan 27th out of 33 brands in 2024, behind even budget manufacturers like Mitsubishi and Kia. The company's much-hyped push into electric vehicles has been an unmitigated disaster. After pioneering mass-market EVs with the Leaf in 2010, Nissan fell asleep at the wheel. While competitors invested billions in new EV platforms, Nissan continued selling the increasingly outdated Leaf with minimal updates. By the time Nissan finally launched the Ariya in 2022, the EV market had moved on. The Ariya, priced at $47,000 with just 216 miles of range, was DOA, selling fewer than 11,000 units in its first full year, while Tesla delivered over 900,000 vehicles. In a sign of total surrender, Nissan canceled 2 planned EVs for the U.S. market in 2024, writing off over $1.2 billion in development costs. The company that once led the EV revolution is now hopelessly behind, with no credible path to catch up. To understand Nissan's collapse, we need to go back to 1999 when Carlos Ghosn arrived at a nearly bankrupt Nissan. The Brazilian-born executive quickly became known as La Coast Killer for his ruthless efficiency, slashing 21,000 jobs and closing 5 factories. His Nissan revival plan worked. By 2005, Nissan was profitable again and expanding globally. But Ghosn's success contained the seeds of Nissan's eventual destruction. His relentless cost-cutting created a corporate culture obsessed with short-term profits at the expense of product quality and innovation. Under Ghosn's leadership, Nissan began cutting corners everywhere. Cheaper materials, extended product life cycles, reduced engineering resources, and scaled-back quality control. The infamous CVT transmission disaster perfectly exemplifies this approach. Starting in 2007, Nissan began equipping nearly all its vehicles with continuously variable transmissions, CVTs, manufactured by its subsidiary, Jatco. These transmissions offered better fuel economy on paper, helping Nissan meet efficiency regulations while saving money on production costs. The problem? They were catastrophically unreliable. Class action lawsuits soon followed as hundreds of thousands of customers experienced transmission failures, often just outside warranty periods. The average repair cost? $4,000 to $7,000, on vehicles many owners were still making payments on. Despite mounting evidence of systemic defects, Nissan refused to issue recalls, instead extending warranties only after legal pressure. Even today, the company continues using these problematic transmissions in new vehicles. Then came the scandal that shook the automotive world. On November 19, 2018, Ghosn was arrested in Japan on charges of financial misconduct, including underreporting his compensation by over $80 million and misusing company assets. He would later make a dramatic escape from Japan, hidden in a musical equipment case, becoming an international fugitive. The arrest exposed deep governance problems within Nissan and its alliance with Renault. Without Ghosn's forceful leadership, the cracks in Nissan's foundation quickly became chasms. The company had no coherent succession plan, no clear strategy, and a corporate culture defined by infighting and finger-pointing. With Ghosn gone, Nissan's leadership made a series of catastrophic strategic errors that accelerated the company's decline. First was the disastrous growth-at-any-cost strategy. Under CEO Hiroto Saikawa, who himself was later forced to resign over improper compensation, Nissan pursued aggressive sales targets by flooding rental car companies and pushing dealers to accept inventory they couldn't sell. While this artificially inflated short-term sales figures, it devastated resale values and brand perception. By 2019, Nissan vehicles had the worst depreciation rates among major manufacturers, with models like the Leaf losing up to 65% of their value after just 3 years. For consumers, this created a vicious cycle. Poor resale values made Nissan purchases increasingly unattractive, forcing the company to offer ever larger incentives and discounts, which further damaged resale values. Next came Nissan's complete misread of the SUV revolution. While competitors rapidly expanded their SUV and crossover lineups, Nissan continued investing in struggling sedan models like the Altima and Maxima. By the time Nissan finally updated its aging SUV lineup with new versions of the Rogue and Pathfinder in 2021, it had already lost critical market share to more nimble competitors. Perhaps most damaging was Nissan's failure to address its quality problems. Despite mounting evidence of systemic issues, the company continued to downplay or deny them. A 2022 internal document leaked to Automotive News revealed that Nissan executives were aware of critical quality deficiencies in 11 key models but chose to delay recalls and repairs to avoid short-term costs. This combination of denial and delay destroyed consumer trust. A 2024 YouGov survey found that just 22% of American car buyers would consider purchasing a Nissan, down from 48% in 2015. Among respondents who had previously owned a Nissan, a shocking 73% said they would not buy another. The attempted merger with Honda in 2024 represented a final desperate gambit. When Honda walked away from negotiations citing insurmountable quality and cultural differences, Nissan was left with no choice but to announce massive cuts. 9,000 jobs eliminated, 3 plants closed, and a product lineup slashed by 30%. The human cost of Nissan's collapse is playing out in communities across America. Take the case of Midtown Nissan in Chicago, a dealership that had been family-owned for 3 generations. Owner Mike Santoro invested $4.2 million in a facility upgrade in 2018, based on Nissan's rosy growth projections. By 2023, his sales had fallen by 62%, and the dealership was losing over $100,000 per month. They kept sending us cars we couldn't sell, while refusing to address the quality issues customers were complaining about, Santoro told us. When I tried to reduce my inventory orders, they threatened to terminate our franchise agreement. After 47 years in business, Midtown Nissan closed its doors in January 2025, putting 34 employees out of work. Santoro's story is far from unique. Since 2022, over 120 Nissan dealerships have closed in the United States, representing nearly 20% of the company's dealer network. Industry analyst Auto Forecast Solutions projects another 80 to 100 closures by the end of 2025. The ripple effects extend far beyond the dealerships themselves. Service centers, parts suppliers, local advertising agencies, and countless other businesses that depended on these dealerships are now struggling. In Bedford, Indiana, the closure of Bedford Nissan left a 75,000 square foot facility empty and eliminated what had been the town's 3rd largest employer. Nissan's plant workers have been hit especially hard. The company's Canton, Mississippi plant once employed over 6,000 workers, making it one of the largest employers in the state. After recent layoffs, that number is down to just over 2,500, with more cuts expected. James Wilkins worked at the Canton plant for 16 years before being laid off in 2024. They gave us 2 weeks' notice and a $3,000 severance package, he told us. 16 years of my life, and that's what it was worth to them. At 53, Wilkins has struggled to find comparable employment. The other manufacturing jobs around here pay $14 to $16 an hour. I was making $28 at Nissan. How am I supposed to keep my house on half my old salary? The situation is equally dire at Nissan's Smyrna, Tennessee plant. Once running 3 shifts to keep up with demand, the plant now operates just a single shift 4 days a week. The partial shutdown has devastated the local economy, with unemployment in Rutherford County jumping from 3.2% to 7.8% in just 18 months. Union representatives at both plants claim Nissan is using the crisis to break worker solidarity. They're targeting the most vocal union supporters in these layoffs, says United Auto Workers organizer Teresa Rodriguez. It's a deliberate strategy to weaken labor organizing, while they still have some leverage. Perhaps the most poignant stories come from Nissan customers themselves, people who trusted the company with one of their largest purchases only to find themselves abandoned. Take the case of the Williams family from Phoenix, Arizona. In 2021, they purchased a new Nissan Pathfinder for $44,000. Just 13 months later, 1 month outside the warranty period, the transmission failed catastrophically. The repair estimate? $6,300. When they contacted Nissan Corporate for assistance, they were told their case, didn't qualify for goodwill coverage. We're a 1-car family with 3 kids, says Jennifer Williams. My husband had to take 3 weeks off work while we scraped together money for the repair. That's 3 weeks of lost wages on top of the repair cost. We're still recovering financially. Or consider Michael Chen, who purchased a 2018 Nissan Leaf, attracted by its environmental benefits and Nissan's reputation as an EV pioneer. By 2023, his battery capacity had degraded to just 62% of its original range, significantly worse than Nissan had advertised. The replacement cost, $8,500. When he joined a class action lawsuit over battery degradation, Nissan fought it aggressively, eventually offering a settlement that provided just $1,700 toward battery replacements. They knew these batteries would degrade faster than advertised, Chen says, but instead of doing the right thing, they dragged customers through years of litigation, hoping we'd give up. As Nissan's dealer network shrinks, many customers find themselves driving hours for warranty service or facing increasingly long wait times for parts. In rural areas, some owners report waiting 6 to 8 weeks for critical parts as Nissan's supply chain breaks down. Online forums like nissanproblems.com have seen membership explode, with over 180,000 registered users sharing stories of mechanical failures and warranty disputes. The site's founder reports that complaints about CVT transmissions alone have increased 278% since 2020. Nissan's collapse is sending shockwaves through the entire automotive industry. As the company frantically slashes prices to move inventory, it's creating downward pressure on competitors' margins as well. Industry analysts estimate that Nissan's aggressive discounting has reduced average transaction prices across the compact and mid-size segments by 4 to 7%. This price pressure comes at a particularly challenging time for the industry. With interest rates elevated and average new car prices already at record highs, manufacturers are struggling to maintain profitability while keeping vehicles affordable for consumers. Nissan's desperation pricing is making this balancing act even more difficult. The company's retreat is also reshaping the competitive landscape. In the mainstream sedan market, Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai are aggressively moving to capture Nissan's abandoned market share. In the budget segment, brands like Kia and Mitsubishi are positioning themselves as more reliable alternatives to Nissan at similar price points. Perhaps most significantly, Nissan's failure in the EV market represents a cautionary tale for the entire industry. Despite having a 7-year head start with the Leaf, Nissan squandered its early advantage through complacency and underinvestment. Today, the company has effectively conceded the EV market to Tesla, the Chinese manufacturers, and more aggressive traditional automakers like Hyundai and Volkswagen. Nissan's EV failure proves that half measures don't work in this transition, says industry analyst Mary Thompson. Companies need to fully commit to electrification with purpose-built platforms and dedicated charging infrastructure. The days of converting gas vehicles to electric or treating EVs as compliance vehicles are over. Nissan's crisis threatens to unravel the complex Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance that has been a cornerstone of the global automotive industry for over 2 decades. The alliance, which once represented the world's largest automaking group by sales, is now facing unprecedented strain. Renault, which owns a 43.4% stake in Nissan, has seen its own market value plummet as Nissan's problems mount. The French automaker is now openly exploring options to reduce its exposure, including potentially selling a portion of its Nissan stake, a move that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. In March 2025, Renault CEO Luca de Meo publicly questioned the alliance's future during an earnings call, stating that all options are on the table regarding Renault's relationship with Nissan. Industry analysts interpreted this as a signal that Renault may be preparing to divest from its Japanese partner. The potential collapse of the alliance would have far-reaching consequences. The 3 companies currently share platforms, powertrains, and technology across numerous vehicle lines. They jointly operate research facilities and have integrated supply chains across multiple continents. Unwinding these complex relationships would be enormously expensive and disruptive. Mitsubishi, the smallest alliance partner, is particularly vulnerable. The struggling Japanese manufacturer has become increasingly dependent on Nissan platforms and technology. Without these resources, Mitsubishi might not survive as an independent automaker. The economic consequences of Nissan's decline extend far beyond the automotive sector. In Tennessee, Mississippi, and other states with significant Nissan facilities, local economies are already feeling the pain. In Smyrna, Tennessee, where Nissan's largest North American plant is located, the impact is severe. Local officials estimate that each Nissan job supports approximately 3.2 additional jobs in the surrounding community. With Nissan's workforce in Smyrna down by over 2,000 positions, that translates to roughly 6,400 indirect job losses in an area with a total population of just 50,000. Tax revenues have also taken a hit. In Rutherford County, where the Smyrna plant is located, property tax collections are down 8.7% year over year, forcing painful cuts to education and public services. The county school system recently announced the elimination of 75 teaching positions for the upcoming academic year, directly attributing the cuts to declining tax revenue from Nissan and its suppliers. Similar stories are playing out in Canton, Mississippi, and other communities tied to Nissan's operations. In Canton, commercial real estate vacancy rates have doubled in the past 18 months as suppliers and service providers to the Nissan plant close or relocate. The crisis also threatens to undermine decades of economic development efforts in these regions. States like Tennessee and Mississippi invested billions in tax incentives and infrastructure improvements to attract automotive manufacturing. As these investments fail to deliver their promised long-term benefits, taxpayers are left holding the bag. From a macro perspective, Nissan's collapse represents a warning sign for the entire Japanese automotive industry. Once synonymous with quality and reliability, Japanese manufacturers have faced increasing challenges from Korean, European, and American competitors. Toyota, Honda, and Subaru have largely maintained their reputations. But Nissan's failure highlights the fragility of brand perception in today's hyper-competitive market. Once trust is lost, the road back is long and expensive, if recovery is possible at all. More broadly, Nissan's struggles reflect Japan's difficulties in adapting to the changing global economy. With an aging population, high labor costs, and increasingly powerful competitors in China and Korea, Japanese manufacturers across multiple industries are facing existential challenges. Nissan's crisis is a canary in the coal mine for Japan Inc., says economist Takashi Watanabe. Companies that fail to adapt to the twin disruptions of electrification and digitalization will not survive the next decade. For consumers, Nissan's collapse offers both opportunities and risks. In the short term, desperate discounting means unprecedented deals on new Nissans, if buyers are willing to accept the quality and resale concerns. In the longer term, reduced competition could lead to higher prices and fewer choices as the industry consolidates. As we've seen, Nissan's problems run far deeper than a few bad quarters or unfortunate product decisions. This is a company facing a fundamental crisis of identity, quality, and trust. The question is no longer whether Nissan can regain its former glory, but whether it can survive at all. The company's newly announced restructuring plan, which includes cutting 20% of global production capacity and reducing the model lineup by 30%, represents a last-ditch effort to stem the bleeding. But is it too little? Too late? Industry insiders are skeptical. Nissan is cutting costs, but they're not addressing the fundamental problem. People don't want their cars, says automotive journalist David Thompson. Until they rebuild their quality reputation, which could take a decade or more, they're just managing decline. The numbers tell a grim story. With $5.3 billion in projected losses this year, Nissan is burning through its cash reserves at an alarming rate. The company currently has about $8.7 billion in cash and short-term investments, enough to sustain current loss rates for less than 2 years. Without a dramatic turnaround, Nissan could face a liquidity crisis by late 2026. What would happen then? The most likely scenario involves a bailout from the Japanese government, potentially followed by a forced merger with another manufacturer. The alternative, bankruptcy and liquidation, would devastate communities across Japan, the United States, and other countries where Nissan maintains operations. For current Nissan owners, uncertainty abounds. Will warranty coverage remain valid? Will parts continue to be available? Will their vehicles become worthless as the brand's perception deteriorates further? These are questions no one can answer with certainty. For potential buyers, the message is clearer. Proceed with extreme caution. The unprecedented discounts now available on new Nissans come with significant hidden costs in terms of reliability, resale value, and future service availability. As the old saying goes, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. As we watch this once great automotive powerhouse struggle for survival, one thing is certain. Nissan's collapse will be studied in business schools for decades as a cautionary tale of how quickly a global brand can unravel when it loses sight of its core values. The question now is whether that tale will include a remarkable comeback or a tragic ending. Only time will tell if Nissan can pull back from the brink. But based on the evidence we've seen, the company's future looks increasingly bleak. The collapse may be slow, but it appears all but inevitable.